Hello everyone, it is Toby here and today we will be going over the log press from the ground up, give full form tips and advice for you guys. It is part of my training session today to get in and get some practice done on the log and make sure my form is nailed. So I thought it was no better opportunity to give you guys a full rundown of how to perform the log press, how to do it safely, and some tips and tricks that you might not hear in other videos that have really helped me get my log press to be really nice and solid. And a big update for the channel, we have finally got a tripod so I can get all the new angles, all the space of the home gym properly set up so I'm not relying on attaching my phone to various bits of kit and machines, hoping that it stays upright. Today we've got it on a tripod so the videos are about to level up. So hopefully you guys are enjoying, and if you are, please be sure to leave a like down below and click subscribe. So I'm going to get kitted up for the log press, show you all the bits of kit that I use when doing the log press, and then we will get it on the pads, get ready to show you the form, tips and tricks as I myself take on board some of the tips that have been given to me and try and relate them to you guys as well. So sit back, relax and get ready to learn all things log press. So I'm going to give you a bit of an equipment 101 on what exactly I'm wearing, every piece of kit and its purpose for the log press specifically, and a few little hacks that you guys might find quite interesting with the equipment. So we're going to start from the feet, going upwards, and first things first, in the feet is the shoes. We are using Olympic lifters. For me, these are the perfect shoe for overhead because not only do they have a really thick, flat, solid base to stop any wobbling with the log on your chest or as you're getting to lockout, the raised heel allows me to lean back a little bit further to get a more of an inclined position to press the log out. Now, I know a lot of people prefer to use flat shoes when they're doing the overhead pressing. For me, the raised heel just adds that little bit of lean back, but it's entirely personal preference. The main thing is make sure you have a really flat, solid base with your shoes, because if you have normal trainers, running shoes, which have a more of a spongy base, as you sort of wobble with the log a little bit, you're going to lose your balance really easily, start taking steps, dancing around. So having a thick, solid base means you're rooted to the ground and can get all of your power through the log to lock out. So that's the first bit of kit that I'd highly recommend trying out, is some shoes that have a really thick, solid base. Next up, the knee sleeves. These ones are entirely personal preference. Now, obviously on a squat, you'd wear the knee sleeves because they provide slight bit of spring out of the hole, but mainly to warm up your knee joints, keep them warm, keep them tight with a bit of compression. For me, I have slight knee issues, so these really help for the dip in the push press on a log. Some people don't like to wear them, but where it's also going to help is in that deep squat position when you're about to clean the log, give you a little bit of a spring on that clean, but also keep the knees warm, keep them pretty well lubricated, a little bit of compression. But these are personal preference, not necessary at all, but if you're finding that your knees hurt after doing log press, whack them on and give them a go. Next up, the belts. You'll see I'm wearing two. That is completely and utterly by design. The hard belt is what's going to provide that core stability, that rock solid compression around your core that's going to really help, as a lifting belt does. But the soft belt here is there purely to protect against log bruises. So when you clean a log and you have a little bit of stomach fat like I do, it'll going to pinch that fat against the hard belt and it's going to really hurt. It's going to leave big red bruises all around the top of your belt, and the soft belt completely mitigates that. You honestly, if you don't know how off-putting it is when you're cleaning a log and it pinches and really hurts, you get completely out of the zone. So having this soft belt completely negates that. You don't even have to think of it. I've never been pinched using it. So if you just have a hard belt, I'd really recommend getting a soft belt because it's going to hurt otherwise. Now onto the arms, we're wearing elbow sleeves. These, again, like the knee sleeves, are an optional piece of kit. In my opinion, a lot of people can get very far without using them. For me, they provide that little bit of compression and warmth around the joint that keeps them lubricated, fends off tendonitis, that sort of thing. Because it is an overhead lift, you're going to get a little bit of a spring out of the elbows, but because it is push press, that spring's mostly taken care of, which is why I say it's pretty much an optional thing. For me, it just provides that warmth, that compression, just makes the joints feel a bit better, so that is why I wear them. And finally, on the arms, we have the wrist wraps. These, for me, are probably the most important bit of equipment behind the belts, and that is because your wrists end up being the weak link in the chain if you don't wear them. With these, your wrists get locked in, locked solid, and they are not the weak link in the chain. If you don't, your wrist can go side to side, forward, back, and I don't know about you, but wrists aren't something that I focus on strengthening. I'm not in arm wrestling or grip training or anything like that. Doing log press with bare wrists gets really easy to lose the log side to side, forward and back. With these on it, really nice and solid, you don't even have to think about it. And finally, the piece of equipment you might not have even noticed that I'm wearing as a piece of equipment is this t-shirt. Now, in some comps you're allowed a grip shirt, in some comps you're not, so I prefer to train without a grip shirt because then it is mimicking every comp situation. If I end up getting to use a grip shirt, great, that's easier. But if I don't, then I can clean without one. But what you might find with using tank tops, smooth shirts, all of that, is the clean can be quite sticky. So what you want to do is choose a t-shirt that has a nice big logo on it, like I have here from the Haynes Farm Open. And when you mix this with chalk, the logo provides that little bit of grip that you might need just to finish off that clean. And no one's going to bat an eyelid at you wearing a t-shirt with a big logo. No one's going to know that's why you're doing it. But it's just a little hack that can help with that clean of the log, stop it slipping. So if you usually train in a smooth tank top or a t-shirt without a logo, give it a go. Find one with a big, nice big logo on it and see if it makes a difference. For me, it makes enough of a difference that I choose to wear this t-shirt or another one with a big logo whenever I do log press. It just helps that clean, helps stay rigid, helps stay solid. And it's a little hack that most people don't think about. So those are all the equipment tips and tricks with the log press. Let's get on to the reason you clicked this video, the actual performing of the log clean and press, some tips and tricks in the technique, how to safely and efficiently perform a clean and press with a log. If this is your first time or you're just looking for a refresher, things you've missed, that sort of thing. Myself, I'm a few years deep into log press training now and I'm still learning. As I said, this whole session is me reinforcing the technique, adding in some tips that I've learned, trying them out. So hopefully I can share them with you guys and it is informative. So there will be a slight drop in quality now, unfortunately, but that is because for the log clean and press, because it is such a long movement and it uses the entire floor to ceiling, I'm going to have to film it in wide angle mode, which is slightly less quality than the normal mode that I use to film. So bear with, I know it's going to be slightly worse quality, but hopefully the information is good, the information is useful, and you learn something. So let's get the log on the pads. So you want to know how to log press. Well, I'm going to start from the floor upwards and break it down into its 3 component parts, give you tips and tricks of each of them, and hopefully this will be really helpful. So first things first is foot position. You want your feet to be at a comfortable distance for you to get as much power out of the press as possible. You don't want to be too narrow because then you're unstable, but also going too wide is going to provide little to no power over the top. So you want to find a happy medium. For me, it's about 1 inch outside of shoulder width. I slightly turn my feet outwards a little bit just because it helps the tracking of my knees. And then what you want to do to get the most power out of your legs is on the dip, really explode up onto the heels and do that triple extension. And by doing that, your arms will fly pretty much to lockout and you just need to finish it off with the triceps. But I mentioned that the log is 3 component parts. So first off is the deadlift. And now everyone knows how to deadlift if you're doing a log. 9 times out of 10, log is something you come to later in your lifting career when you're looking to spice things up. You know how to deadlift, you know how to squat, you know how to overhead, and you certainly know how to bench. So log press is one of those things that incorporates a lot of different things. So first off, you want to take that foot position that I mentioned, and then with the log, it is exactly like you deadlift a barbell, except it's massive for the first portion. So what you want to do, what I like to do, is I go down into like my deadlift starting position, and then I want to position the log against my shins like it would be, with the handles angled ever so slightly away from me. So they're at a very slight down angle pointing at the floor. And then when I go to pick it up, I go down into that deadlift position and I grasp it on the handles with my thumbs along the top of the handle like so. So not wrapped around just yet, along the top of the handle. So what I'm going to do is do exactly that and pick it up. Like so. And you can see that the handles are pointed slightly away from me down at the floor with my thumbs along the top. And this is where we move into the clean. So at this point, this is where I like to get my breath and retract my shoulders back like so. And you can see in doing so, the log rolls up to the point where the handles are now horizontal to the floor. You can see as I retract my shoulder blades, this happens. And I don't want you to confuse that with the bending of an arm. You just want to retract the shoulder blades, keep the arms dead straight. So once you are in that upright position, the next portion of the log is the clean. And the clean is the one most people struggle with because most people are familiar with the press, they're familiar with the deadlift. So the clean is the difficult one. Now with the clean, what you're going to want to do is hit a really deep squat. So once your shoulder blades are retracted, you're stood up, straight arms, you hit a very, very deep squat like so with the log on the end of your knees. Now it's going to be much easier than doing it without a log because the log acts as a counterbalance and allows you to sit further down into the hole. And then once the log is on your lap, you want to row it in to your upper chest, not the stomach. A lot of people row it into the stomach. You want to row it in to the top of the chest so that when you explode up out of that hole, the log is already halfway up your body and not down here. Now what this means is not only do you have less of a distance to roll the log, if the log does slip down, it doesn't slip right off, it just slips onto this shelf that you've created with your belt. Now, if you start on the shelf and it slips, you've got nowhere to go. So by starting on the chest, if you nail it, you only get to go like that with your elbows. If it slips a little bit, you can still save it. And a really good tip for exploding out of the hole on the clean is treat it as if you're doing a paused front squat and that you're trying to drive up as hard as you can. And when you do, you want to ram the hips through like you're locking out a deadlift. And by doing that, it'll catapult the log up onto your chest. And what you want to do when you do this is keep those shoulder blades retracted, but allow the elbows to do the work. So your elbows should end up on your chest nice and high, where your forearm is pretty much at right angles to the floor, or parallel to the floor, and this is nice and high like so. So I'll get it into a rack position so you can see what the clean looks like, and then we'll talk about the press. So that is a good clean and a good rack position. My elbows were nice and high. The handles from the front should be facing at you, so you should be able to see the cutout of the handles from directly in front of you, obviously if someone was stood there or you guys at the camera. And your head, you might wonder, where does that go? Well, if I turn to the side, when I've got the log on my chest, if you stay upright, the log is going to be flat, your elbows are going to be down, and then as soon as you go to press, you're going to have to dump it forward. What you want to do is as you clean the log and it comes up, you want to extend your upper spine and upper back like so. So you're creating that curve in your back. Now you want to keep the lower back strong, solid, straight. You just want to do a slight tilt with your upper back, which creates that shelf across here with your head looking directly at the ceiling. It should be looking straight up, and this is where the raised heels come in really well because you can lean right back into them and get in a really good position. So that is your rack position, and then once you're in it, you want to be looking straight up. The log will create a semicircle with your neck and chest. It should be tucked right in there, and then you can dip and drive up like I spoke about, and then when it's locked out, you bring the head through, and that's a good lift. So the press is the easiest bit because once it is on the chest in a good position, it really is just a bit of a tricep extension to get it up. It's really nice and easy. So if you have strong triceps, strong pressing power, and a really good dip and drive with the legs, you just have to catch it and then bring your head through. And once it is caught straight over your face, it won't go anywhere. So make sure when you bring your head forward, you're not bringing your hands forward and it drops. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to load up the weight and show you a real-time log press with actual weight on there, what it sort of looks like for me doing a proper rep, and hopefully you can see all of those tips and tricks in action in an actual rep. So I'm going to load up to 92 kilo, which for me is about second to last warm up, with my PB at the minute being 120. So you can see we're getting up there, but not still too heavy that it's going to compromise form or anything. So we're going to do it nice and heavy, show you guys what that looks like, and we'll talk a bit more afterwards. So now you've seen an example of what a good log press looks like at a bit of a heavier weight. Hopefully you've seen those 3 stages put together seamlessly with all the tips and tricks that I mentioned put into practice. Hopefully it was given to you in a nice digestible way that you guys can go and utilize this when you're doing your log press. But once again, apologies for the quality of those clips. Filming in the wide angle mode means I have to turn the camera down to 30 FPS to stop the lights flickering and looking horrible. But it does mean the quality and the look of the video suffers a bit. But hopefully you were able to force yourself through that and get some good information. But what I'm going to do now is I am going to do some accessory work. So some of the best accessories that I find useful for the log press, and some of them are pretty unorthodox that you might not have heard of. So this is what I do to strengthen the log press without having to do any actual log. So the first one here is the seated incline log press. It is a perfect way to work on the pressing portion of the log without taxing your core and stabilizing muscles anymore. So what you want to do is set up the log in a rack with a bench on a high incline setting, then clean it off the safeties to the chest and just rep it out from the chest exactly as if you messed up your dip and you're trying to strict press the log out. It builds immense pressing power, gets you used to the log as an implement, and is a fantastic accessory. So here is an example of that, and then we'll move on to the next one. So next up is the banded shoulder pin press. Now, if you've been any sort of long-term fan of the channel, you'll know that every single log session I do some form of pin press. It is the best exercise for smashing the triceps and getting that lockout power really nice and strong. And doing it with bands just adds to that instability and makes it even more brutal and taxing. It is my absolute favorite shoulder accessory, and this is what it looks like. It's really important to take a momentary pause on the safeties between each of those reps. The whole point of them is to go from a dead stop. So you really want to go from that dead stop, it drive and explode up, and that is how you blast through sticking points. It's a fantastic exercise, and I'd incorporate it on any overhead day. So next up is a pretty unorthodox accessory, and it is absolutely awesome for core stability and being able to hold a lockout and get a log up nice and strong with a big strong core, and that is an offset carry. So single arm farmer's carry, which really lights up the core. It forces you to brace well. This is beltless as well, and it is a perfect exercise for making sure that if you get off center with a log press, your core can stay nice and solid and really fight it back into position. It's a fantastic exercise that's not just good for the log press, but it is good for any exercise that uses the core, which hint is pretty much all of them. Now, because you can't go so heavy on them, I stick a fat grip on them as well, just to get a little bit of grip training in there as well, because it's not the grip that's going to give out on you on these, it is your core. So by adding the fat grip, it allows you to get some grip training in, and grip training's always fantastic. So I'm going to head outside, I'm going to get them done, and I'm going to show you want to do an equal amount of distance on both sides every single set. So there you have it. There are some good and easy tips for the log press, a bit of a tutorial on how to do it, what equipment I use, and then some great accessory exercise. And let me tell you, those single hand farmer's walks are not only brutal on the grip, but on the core as well, which is exactly why we want them. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you did enjoy. If you found this useful, leave it in the comments below, as well as any tips and tricks you have on how to perform the log press that you think might be helpful for other people. Leave it in below. We are a community here. This isn't just my channel. This is where we can all talk about strongman and strength training and fitness and all of that fun stuff. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to hit like and subscribe, and I will see you in the next one.